Have you ever had the gut feeling that something's off, and then your body backs it up with gas, bloating, constipation, or sprinting to the bathroom before your morning coffee? Yeah, that's not random. That's your gut trying to talk to you. The question is, are you listening? We're told to pop a Tums, cut out gluten, try a cleanse. But what if that discomfort isn't just annoying? What if it's a message? In this episode, I'm showing you how to decode the 7 gut symptoms I see every week and what they're really trying to tell you about your nervous system, your hormones, and your health. Because once you start listening to your gut, you stop treating it like it's broken and start supporting it like it's the control center it actually is. All right, let's clear something up right out of the gate. Your gut, it's not just a long food tunnel that turns tacos into poop. I mean, yes, digestion is part of its job. That's kind of like saying your phone is just for making calls. Technically true, but wildly missing the point. Because your gut isn't just a food chute, it's your body's control tower. It's your immune system's front line, your hormone making headquarters, your neurotransmitter factory, your internal FBI for identifying threats. And maybe most importantly, it's the system that's constantly reporting back to your brain, are we safe or are we under siege? You see, your gut is a 24/7 security system. Here's the deal. Roughly 70% of your immune system, it lives in your gut lining. That's not some evolutionary whoopsie. That's by design. Because every single day, your gut is your first point of contact with the outside world. Every bite of food, every sip of water, every chemical, pesticide, microbe, or mystery ingredient that sneaks into that smoothie, it all passes through your gut. And your gut doesn't just digest it, it decides, should we absorb this? Should we attack this? Should we call in backup and launch the immune alarm? It's like airport security, scanning every passenger and either stamping their passport or pulling them into the back room for enhanced screening. But it's not just part of your immune system. Your gut also helps make, activate, or detox over 30 different hormones. That includes serotonin, also known as your mood stabilizer hormone, dopamine, say hello to motivation, estrogen, which is detox through your gut liver axis, and thyroid hormones. T4 to T3 activation happens in the gut too. So when your gut's off, it doesn't just affect digestion, it affects your mood, your metabolism, your menstrual cycle, your motivation, the whole show. And don't forget the gut brain hotline. Let's talk about the vagus nerve, your body's direct line between your gut and your brain. It's like a live chat thread running 24/7 where your gut's constantly texting your brain, hey, we're calm down here, digestion systems go. Or, uh-oh, just got hit with some gluten and stress, we're shutting down now. Or, emergency alert, fight or flight's been activated, cancel stomach acid. And by the way, 90% of those signals run from the gut to the brain, not the other way around. So if your gut's inflamed or dysbiotic or overloaded, your brain's gonna feel it. So when someone says, I've got gut issues, I don't just think, cool, let's run a stool test. I'm asking, is your immune system flaring? Is your hormone system struggling to keep up? Is your nervous system saying, nope, not safe here? Or is your detox system totally overbooked and waving the white flag? Because in my world, gut symptoms are never just about the gut. They're messages. They're your body's way of saying, something upstream is out of alignment and I need you to pay attention. And once we start listening to those messages, not suppressing them, not silencing them, but actually decoding them, everything starts to make a whole lot more sense. Let me tell you about Michelle. She came to me with a list of gut issues longer than the CVS receipt you get when you just buy toothpaste. She had gas, bloating, constipation. Sometimes she would experience all three in one day. What can I say? Her gut was a real overachiever. She called it random, But after 10 years of chasing answers, scopes, low FODMAP diets, fiber gummies, more scopes, she was tired, not just physically. She was tired of being handed another label and another laxative. The last straw, she had a GI tell her she had IBS-C, which, let's be honest, is just fancy code for your gut's constipated and we're not really sure why. And they gave her a bottle of Miralax like it was a long-term solution. They said just take it daily. But Michelle didn't want to just poop. She wanted to understand why her body had pressed pause on that basic function in the first place. So we slowed things down and we started listening to her symptoms, not as annoyances, but as messages. Her bloating wasn't just sometimes, it was every afternoon at 2 to 3 p.m., like clockwork. Now, in functional medicine, that time window, that's what I like to call cortisol crash hour. Blood sugar takes a nosedive, stomach acid hits snooze like it's Monday morning, and your lunch, it's not digesting, it's slowly turning into a gas producing science fair project. You didn't eat that much, but your gut's acting like you swallowed a balloon. And that combo equals gas pressure plus sluggish motility, which equals afternoon bloat baby. It wasn't random. It was a blood sugar plus low acid plus nervous system pattern. But no one had ever explained that to her. Then there was her constipation. Every time she had a tight deadline, she would have no bowel movement for days. Travel, forget it. She packed magnesium, prunes, and crossed her fingers. That wasn't just bad luck, that was a vagus nerve shutdown. When your nervous system hits survival mode, digestion hits the brakes. Because let's be real, your body's not thinking about peristalsis when it's trying to dodge what it thinks is a lion or a looming client presentation. Digestion isn't essential for short term survival, so it gets down regulated, and the gut literally freezes. And her skin flared too, red rashes, little breakouts, especially around the jawline and chest, and every time stress went up, her skin followed. That's not just hormonal, that's leaky gut meets histamine overload. When the gut lining gets inflamed or permeable, little particles sneak through that shouldn't. The immune system then goes on high alert, and histamine, the inflammatory messenger, starts lighting fires everywhere. And guess what? Skin is often the place where those fires show up first. You see, Michelle's gut wasn't broken, it was begging for support. She wasn't failing at gut health. She didn't need a stricter diet or more restriction or another probiotic blend. Her body was actually brilliant. It was giving her feedback, clear, patterned, and specific. She just hadn't been taught how to translate it. Every symptom was like a smoke alarm, but instead of checking to see where the smoke was coming from, she kept smashing the off button. That's what happens when we chase symptom suppression over symptom interpretation. We quiet the noise, but we miss the message. We miss the pattern, we miss the root, and we stay stuck in the cycle. Michelle didn't need another restrictive diet. She didn't need to chase the next cleanse or spend hundreds on fancy gut tests. She needed someone to help her listen. And once we calmed her nervous system and stabilized her meals and got her bowels moving again, things started to shift. Her afternoon bloating, that was gone. Her travel constipation became predictable and manageable. And her skin, that had been calmer than it had been in years. But more than that, she finally felt like she understood her body. The fear around food faded, the overwhelm turned into clarity, and instead of feeling broken, she started to feel in control. Because when you stop fighting your symptoms and start listening to what they're telling you, that is when your body starts to trust you back and healing stops feeling like a guessing game and starts to make sense. You see, Michelle's story isn't unique. In fact, it's one I see almost every week. Symptoms that seem random, treatments that only scratch the surface, and bodies that are speaking clearly, but no one's listening. So let's change that. Let's walk through the 7 gut messages that I decode most often in practice. Not just the labels your doctor gave you, not IBS or reflux or SIBO. I'm talking about what your symptoms are actually trying to communicate before they show up on your labs. Because in my clinic, symptoms aren't static. They're not a life sentence. They're feedback. They're breadcrumb trails back to your root imbalances. And once you learn how to read them, you stop playing symptom whack-a-mole and start building a map that actually leads somewhere. All right, let's talk about gas. And no, not the burrito kind. Gas is one of the most common complaints that I hear, but I'm not talking about a one-off gassy day after beans and sparkling water. I'm talking about the balloon belly by 4 p.m., where your jeans feel like a medieval torture device and you could swear you're pregnant with an air baby. When I hear that, I don't say take gas X, I say what's fermenting and why. You see, gas is a microbial byproduct. It's a result of fermentation, but where and when it builds tells us a ton. You see, if carbs set you off, things like fruit, rice, oats, fiber, I'm thinking SIBO, also known as small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Basically, fermentation is happening too early in the small intestine and not in the colon. If protein feels heavy or makes you burp for hours, that's usually low stomach acid or sluggish pancreatic enzymes. You see, protein needs acid, and without it, it just sits and rots, and gas happens. If fat, like avocado, eggs, or olive oil, is the trigger, that's likely a bile flow issue. Think of bile like dish soap. It breaks down fat and it keeps things moving. If it's too thick or too sluggish, or your gallbladder is MIA, fat gets stuck and your belly blows up. Oh, and none of those digestive secretions happen on autopilot. They're activated by your nervous system. Your vagus nerve literally sends the digestion go time signal. So when I hear I'm gassy, I don't just think microbiome. I think, are your digestive secretions even showing up to the party? Is your nervous system online when you eat? Or are you eating lunch in a cortisol haze between emails? Because digestion, it's not just a chemical process, it's a neurochemical one also. All right, let's move on to bloating. And not the post holiday dinner kind where you know you took down 2 plates of stuffing and then went back for pie. I'm talking about the bloating that builds all day like a suspense in a horror movie, except the jump scare is your jeans at 6 p.m. You see, morning, your stomach's flat, you're hopeful, maybe even a little toned. By afternoon, your jeans start plotting against you, and by evening, you're unbuttoning your pants before dinner and Googling Candida cleanse like it's your last hope. And you're thinking, I swear, I didn't even eat that much. But here's the kicker. It's not about volume. It's about what's not moving. You see, for some, it's subtle constipation. You're going daily, but not fully emptying. Leftover residue then feeds bacteria, which causes fermentation to build, which then causes pressure to increase. For others, it's vagal dysfunction. Your gut's in freeze mode. Motility slows, things back up, and bloating follows. And if your bloating gets worse with leftovers, wine, fermented foods, or chocolate, that's a histamine clearance issue. Your body's struggling to degrade histamine, often due to dysbiosis, mast cell reactivity, or low DAO enzyme activity. So again, bloating isn't just about food. It's about gut movement, nervous system tone, histamine balance, and why the pressure isn't clearing in the first place. Low FODMAP forever, it isn't the fix. It's about getting things moving downstream again. Let's talk constipation, because when your gut hits do not disturb mode for 3 days straight, it's not just about fiber. More often, constipation is a nervous system dysregulation story. Stress, burnout, a surgery, a trauma. I've seen it over and over. The body goes into lockdown mode and the gut says, nope, not safe to let go. The vagus nerve then disconnects, cortisol spikes, and peristalsis hits pause. Magnesium helps, but it's not magic if the underlying safety signal isn't resolved. And fiber? Sure, it's great if you're hydrated, calm, and your gut's actually moving. But if things are inflamed, sluggish, or frozen in survival mode, fiber can feel less like a gentle broom and more like trying to clear a traffic jam by sending in more cars. Good luck with that. Because when the gut's not ready, even the healthy stuff can backfire. So when someone's constipated, I'm asking, how's your free T3? Because your thyroid directly impacts your gut motility. Are you hydrated with minerals, not just plain water? Are you even in a parasympathetic state at mealtime? Is there inflammation narrowing the pathway? Because fixing constipation starts with restoring communication. Nervous system to gut, thyroid to colon, electrolytes to muscle tone. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we've got loose stools. Now, I know some people think this is the gut flushing things out, but in functional medicine, I see it differently. It's the gut saying, I'm overwhelmed and irritated, so I'm hitting the emergency exit. That might look like urgency after coffee or fatty meals, which points to bile dysregulation. It could look like diarrhea on travel days, which that's more of a vagus nerve issue. And it can look like gut flares after eating out, which that points to stealth pathogens or chemical reactivity. And in these cases, your gut isn't digesting, it's flushing, and not in a calm, elegant way, more like pulling the fire alarm and flooding the building. And diet alone won't fix this. You've got to calm inflammation, you've got to heal the gut lining, you've got to support bile flow, and you also need to rule out stealth bugs that keep triggering the system. All right, let's talk about stomach pain after meals. Why we're here, let's bust a myth. Most people with stomach pain after meals are told they have too much acid, but the irony, it's usually the opposite. You see, low stomach acid, it equals poor breakdown of food, it equals delayed emptying, it equals more pressure, which then turns into more reflux, and it also equals less defense against pathogens. Stomach acid is your first line of digestive defense, and when it's low, the whole chain reaction, pancreas, gallbladder, enzyme, those all go offline. So yes, your pain may feel like reflux, but suppressing acid, that often makes the root problem worse. We want to identify low acid patterns. We want to rule out H. pylori. We want to gently support digestion with bitters, zinc, or betaine HCl if appropriate. And we want to activate that rest and digest state before meals. Let's talk about skin issues, because this is one that people miss all the time. Acne, eczema, rosacea, hives, skin flares, they often start in the gut. If your skin is the body's largest organ of elimination, your gut is its primary filtration system. So if that filter is leaky or clogged or overwhelmed, toxins, histamines, and immune messengers spill into circulation and eventually show up on the skin. When I see skin flares, I'm thinking leaky gut, histamine overload, mold or dysbiosis, liver sluggishness, and mycotoxins may be tanking immune tolerance. And the solution is to cool the gut inflammation, support liver detox, lower the histamine burden, and then the skin calms down. And finally, let's talk about food intolerance. This is the one that breaks my heart. When someone says, I used to eat everything, now even chicken and broccoli set me off. That's not just sensitivity, that's a nervous system in defense mode. The immune system is stuck in high alert. The vagus nerve is offline, the gut lining is too leaky, and the body no longer knows what's safe. And the solution isn't more restriction, it's more regulation. We ask, what's driving the hypervigilance? Is it mold? Is it trauma? Is it infections? Is the vagus nerve getting the all clear? Can we rebuild tolerance from the inside out? Because when the nervous system feels safe again, food becomes fuel, not a threat. And that's the map. Gas, bloating, constipation, loose stools, stomach pain, skin flares, food reactions. These aren't just random symptoms, they're guides. And when we stop trying to silence them and instead listen through a root cause lens, that's when everything starts to make sense. And that is when the body finally says, thank you, now we can heal. So now that we've decoded the messages, gas, bloating, constipation, flares, food reactions, you might be thinking, okay, I get it. My gut's trying to tell me something, but how do I figure out what's actually going on in there? And that's usually where stool testing enters the chat. But here's the thing. Before you drop hundreds on a GI map or a gut zoomer, or start nuking all the bad bugs with antimicrobials, we need to talk. Because without the right context, a stool test can leave you more confused than when you started. And let me explain why. Stool tests, they can be powerful. I run them all the time. I interpret them. I teach patients how to make sense of them. They're a tool. But here's what no one tells you until you've already sent $400 to a lab. You can have the fanciest GI map in the world with a glossy list of bad bugs and bar graphs that look like a high school science fair project and still have no real plan on how to help your symptoms. Because gut healing, it's not about going to war with your microbiome, it's about understanding the terrain. Let's say your test shows H. pylori, candida, a parasite, some high beta glucuronidase, a missing lactobacillus strain. Okay, now what? If your vagus nerve is offline, or your stomach acid is too low, or your bile isn't flowing, and your immune system is already limping along, you could nuke those bugs with the best antimicrobials in the world, and guess what? They'll come back, or morph, or trigger different symptoms, and you'll feel like you're chasing your tail because you didn't support the system. You only targeted the symptom. This is where so many people get stuck. They get a test, they see bad guys, and they think if I kill all of these off, I'll be better. But the bugs, they're opportunists. They only take over when the system is out of balance. So if you never ask, why did those microbes overgrow? Why did my gut barrier allow this? Why didn't my immune system shut this down earlier? Why is digestion not self-correcting? Then you're playing a high-stakes game of microbial whack-a-mole. So when someone comes to me and they ask, should I do a stool test? I say, it depends. What I really want to know first is, what are your symptom patterns? Is it always after meals? Is it after stress? Is it the same time every day? What's your nervous system state? Are you even in a parasympathetic mode where healing is possible? How's your nutrient status? Do you have enough reserves to handle detox or die-off or immune activation? Is your gut-liver-brain axis online? Because if bile is stagnant and the liver's overwhelmed, even the cleanest protocol will feel like a brick wall. And only after we've looked at those root layers do I say, yep, now it's time to test. Because then we're not just guessing, we're confirming. We're using data to clarify the phase of healing that you're in, not just to label what's wrong. Used strategically, a stool test can be a compass. It can show us where true north is, what needs attention, what's missing, what's flaring. But without the terrain work underneath, without the nervous system, digestion, motility, and immune context, that test will leave you overwhelmed, or worse, on a protocol that your body's not ready to handle yet. So yes, stool tests can help, but not as the first step, not as the answer, and not without a map. Because healing the gut isn't about fighting harder, it's about supporting smarter. Let me paint a picture that I see all the time. Someone comes in and says, I did a 90-day candida cleanse and I felt great until I didn't. Now I'm bloated, exhausted, and reacting to everything, even chicken broth and blueberries. And here's what I ask. Did you prep your gut terrain first, or did you just jump straight into microbial warfare? Because healing your gut, it's not about dropping antimicrobials like bombs. It's about rebuilding resilience. And like any renovation project, you need to lay the foundation before you hang the wallpaper. So let's talk sequence, because timing matters. These are the 5 core steps I walk almost every patient through in this order before we ever open a bottle of berberine or oregano oil. Number 1, safety first. As you may have picked up by now, your gut only works when your body feels safe. That's not woo, that's neurophysiology. Digestion is a parasympathetic process. Stomach acid, enzymes, bile, peristalsis, all of it gets triggered when your nervous system says, we're good, let's eat. But if you're stuck in fight, flight, or freeze, that switch never flips. So before anything else, we have to regulate the nervous system. with vagus nerve practices like humming, gargling, cold rinses, and slow exhales, with light cues like getting morning sunlight and setting screen boundaries at night, with calming adaptogens like ashwagandha or holy basil based on your stress type, and with protein rich meals to stabilize blood sugar and keep your brain online. And maybe most importantly, teaching the body that digestion isn't a threat, because no gut protocol will work if your system thinks it's under siege. Number 2, meals that matter. Now that we've turned down the alarm bells, we can actually look at what's going in. This isn't about perfection. It's not eat clean or die trying. It's about choosing meals that stabilize your system, not spike it. Here's what we dial in. Protein at every meal to trigger digestion, build hormones, and regulate blood sugar. Gentle fibers and color. Think cooked veggies, broths, stewed fruits. Skip the raw kale smoothies if your gut's on edge. And no glucose roller coasters, because spikes equal inflammation, which equals terrain instability. We need to use every bite of food as a signal. Are we calming inflammation or are we feeding the chaos? This step alone improves mood, motility, and microbial balance without needing a single supplement. Number 3, stool support. Let's get real. You can't heal if you're not pooping regularly. Constipation equals recirculated toxins, it equals stagnant bile, it equals estrogen buildup, it equals histamine overload, and a very grumpy microbiome. So here's the rule: regularity before reactivity. This means 1 complete bowel movement per day, ideally at the same time, because your gut loves rhythm. It also means hydration and electrolytes, not just plain water. Check for low magnesium, sluggish bile, or motility blocks. If your bowels aren't moving, even the cleanest gut protocol will backfire. Fix the flow first. Number 4, repair the lining. Now we rebuild the wall that holds everything together, the gut lining. If your gut is leaky, inflamed, or thin, everything becomes reactive. Food, supplements, stress, even helpful interventions. But here's the good news. This step doesn't require heroic effort. It's quiet, powerful, and foundational. I usually start with L-glutamine. It's fuel for enterocytes, which are your gut lining cells. I also start with zinc carnosine for soothing and regeneration, and DGL, also known as licorice, to buffer inflammation without affecting blood pressure. And I'll also I'll look at aloe and marshmallow root for mucosal hydration and comfort. This is where we build tolerance to food, to life, to healing itself. Start here before you restrict anything. Number 5, then and only then do I look at testing and targeting. Because at this point, the nervous system is calmer, meals are stabilizing you, bowels are moving, the gut lining is ready, and now we can ask what's actually overgrown, what antimicrobials or antifungals will be most effective here. Are we in a terrain where biofilm breakers or binders make sense? And here's the secret. When the foundation is strong, the protocol actually sticks. You don't crash halfway through. You don't shrink your food list down to rice and air. You don't end up more depleted than when you started. You clear, you re-regulate, you rebuild. The bottom line, before you reach for oregano oil or binders or the gut cleanse from that podcast ad, zoom out, support the system, follow the sequence, and start with safety. Because the gut isn't fragile, it's responsive. And when you support it in the right order, it knows exactly how to heal. Let's end with the piece that most people skip. Because your gut, it's not just a digestive tube with attitude. It's a sensor. It's a safety detector. It's a real-time messenger constantly talking to your brain. And it's not just saying, here's what I ate today. It's saying, do I feel safe enough to digest, to repair, to be okay? Here's a wild fact that still blows people's minds. Over 90% of the vagus nerve signals run from your gut to your brain, not the other way around. So your brain isn't just giving orders, it's taking feedback, and a lot of it. And what is the gut reporting? whether you've had protein or just coffee all day, whether you're breathing or bracing, whether you're calm or just pretending to be while doom scrolling Instagram. That feedback gets turned into biology, more or less stomach acid, motility on or off, enzymes and bile flowing or frozen. And if the message is, I'm not safe, your gut shuts it all down. So when someone says, I bloat from everything now, my gut used to be fine, now I can't handle garlic, eggs, or air. I've tried every elimination diet and I'm still inflamed. I don't see failure. I see a system that's doing exactly what it was designed to do in a world that probably hasn't felt safe for a while. Because the gut tenses under threat. It slows under overwhelm. It flushes under stress, and it screams when it doesn't feel supported. Symptoms are not misbehavior, they're signals. If you feel like your gut's falling apart, if you're reacting to foods you used to tolerate, if your symptoms are louder than ever, even after doing everything right, or if you're bloated, burnt out, or bouncing between protocols that keep backfiring, you're not broken, you're likely just overloaded. Physically, emotionally, neurologically. So what if, instead of silencing your gut, you listen to it? What if you stopped suppressing the flares, chasing the trendiest cleanse, blaming your gut for trying to protect you, and instead you got curious? What is my body trying to tell me? What feels unsafe? What part of me hasn't exhaled in a while? Because here's the reframe. Safety isn't just a mindset, it's a physiological state. And from that place, from parasympathetic, from calm, from I've got your back, that is when your gut can finally rest, repair, and rebuild. That is when symptoms soften. That's when food becomes fuel again. That is when your body starts to trust you back. And the healing, it doesn't just begin there, it finally sticks. If this episode hit home for you, if you're realizing your gut symptoms haven't been random, but actually intelligent signals that your body's been sending all along, then now's the time to stop chasing symptoms and start listening to the story. And if you're not sure where to begin, I've got 2 free resources that can help you take the next step. Grab the Bloat Decoder if you want to understand the real root causes of bloating, from motility issues to histamine to vagus nerve dysfunction, and how to start supporting them without cutting out every food that you love. Or if your labs are normal, but you still feel off, check out the Lab Decoder. I'll show you what your results actually say about your gut, hormones, and nervous system from a functional perspective. You can find both links to the guides in the show notes. And remember, your gut's not just reacting, it's responding. It's been trying to protect you, communicate with you, and guide you back to balance. And once you start listening through the root cause lens, that is when real healing starts to click. All right, before you head out, thank you so much for spending this time with me. If you're learning from this podcast or it's helping you understand your body a little bit better, there are a couple really simple, zero-cost ways that you can support the show, and they honestly make a huge difference. First, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. That is one of the best ways to help this podcast grow and reach more people who need this information. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, go ahead and hit the follow button so you don't miss future episodes. And on both platforms, you can leave up to a 5-star review, which helps more than you know. You can also now leave comments on both Spotify and Apple, which is pretty cool. So if you have questions for me or topics you'd love for me to cover in future episodes, drop those there. And if you want to make sure that I actually see your questions, the best place to leave them is in the YouTube comments or to DM me on Instagram. I love reading them, I take the time to go through them, and I do my best to respond personally. Thank you again for being here, for listening, and for being part of this community. I really do appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next episode.